In today's video, I'm going to introduce you to a method of cleaning that I haven't shown on this channel before, and I call it the Keepy Uppy Method. Now, this way of cleaning a house, or more specifically tidying a house, is ideal for people with very short attention spans or people who get distracted very easily. So if you're the type of person who starts off tidying a specific area of the house and then suddenly you're an hour deep into rearranging the bookshelf, and then suddenly there's a pile of books in the corner of the room that, let's be honest, you're going to leave there now because you got distracted and moved on to something else, and neither of those little side quests actually helped you in achieving your goal of a tidy house that day, then this video is probably for you. It's great for people with ADHD who struggle with finding motivation day to day, or for anyone whose house has gotten a bit on top of them and you've just been existing in the space kind of irritated by it but not enough to immediately do something about it. And then out of nowhere it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you've got this overwhelming feeling that you must make it spotless this second, otherwise you feel like you might actually spontaneously combust. But now it's gotten to the point that you don't know how or where to start. This method might be the method for you. I'm not going to talk about why houses get messy in this video or how to prevent them getting messy. We're focusing solely today on tidying a mess that's already happened. We haven't got time for guilt or embarrassment here. Throw away that mentality. It's not helpful, and we can do this. So here I'm showing you what my house is looking like first of all. Upstairs is worse than downstairs, sometimes it's vice versa, and then we're going to get straight into the cleaning and I'm going to explain how the method actually works. So as you can see, I'm starting in the boys' bedroom. But what you're going to see is me kind of ping-ponging from one room to the next, from one task to the next and back and forth. And this Keepy Uppy method is based on the premise that you need to keep moving. You can't stall. You can't stay in one place for too long. Do you ever remember playing the Don't Let the Balloon Touch the Floor game as a child, where you'd all work together to make sure the balloon never touched the floor? Because if it did, the game was over. And it was also important that you batted the balloon away. Never held on to it, because again, if you did, game over. Keeping a house tidy when you're a distractible person is much like that game. It's an inside joke amongst ADHD folk on social media that if you're trying to get something done, never sit down, never sit on your phone. Because the second you do, chances are you're not getting that thing done today. You're going to freeze on the spot, and then you're going to feel frustrated with yourself all day. Now, within the context of cleaning a house, I'm going to add something to that no-no list. When you're in a particularly distractible mood, you know the one that takes you on side quests, don't try to force yourself to get one room completed before you move on to the next, because then you're tempting the likelihood that you're going to get bored out of your mind and it's not going to get finished. Because all you're going to be thinking is, after I've done this room, I've got to do another one. What we need to do on these occasions is use our distractibility to our advantage. Use whatever it is that makes us flip from one project to the next, never actually finishing one. Tame it, refine it, and turn it into a skill. So we're going to start on one small thing. We're going to finish it, and as we're doing that, we're going to notice something else that needs doing. There'll be something that needs taken into another room, for example. And that will guide us smoothly onto our next task. It's fluid and intuitive, and that releases dopamine. We're moving through the house, constantly changing scenery and tasks. And before you know it, you've gotten a huge amount of the overall mess throughout the entire house done. Granted, it might not be the quickest way to get things done. I've done a whole house tidy a lot quicker than this before. But sometimes my go-to methods just don't work for me, and I have to be adaptive and work with my moods. On this channel, I'm slowly moving through and introducing methods to find a strategy that works for each and every messy personality type. Because keeping a house tidy is not a one-size-fits-all thing. What works for one person isn't going to work for another. I say it all the time. Saying that though, this entire house clean still only took about an hour and a half, and I'd say that's pretty good going. This way of doing things is particularly good if you know that no matter what you do, your battery's going to run out, or you're going to get bored and you're not going to be able to finish it all. Or maybe you've got a commitment later on in the day and you've only got a certain amount of time to get something done. At least this way, each room in the house will be looking even just a little bit better. And that's going to drastically improve your mood, and this is what we want. Recently, me and Rudy have started reading a few chapters of a Roald Dahl book every night. Looking at the box sets just reminded me. And I bring this up for a reason. One of the things I really struggle with, and if you've watched a lot of my videos, you'll already know this, but I struggle a lot with forming and sticking to routines. Always have done. Again, I think this is very common in people with ADHD. But as much as I thrive on routine, and as much as consistency makes me feel safe and secure in a way, when it comes to building and stacking habits, I can be doing so well at staying on track. But the second I miss a day, for whatever reason, it's like that whole habit and everything I've done up until that point has been erased from my brain. It's like it never happened. You know that torch that they use in Men in Black to erase people's memories? It's literally like that. One day missed and I cannot get back on track. I have to build that habit back up from scratch each time. And I bring that up because being able to stick to habits and routine is integral when it comes to keeping the house in order. And I get so frustrated with myself. And I'm sure a lot of you who are watching know what that feels like. It's so disheartening cleaning a massive mess up yet again when you made a promise to yourself that you were going to prevent it this time. You were going to keep on top of it. To look at how lovely and calming the house is when it's clean, wishing so badly you could keep it this way, but knowing deep down there's only a matter of time before it creeps up on you again. I think a lot of people take their ability to engage in daily habits for granted, and I don't mean that in a bad way, it's a good thing. I just mean that a lot of people do things like washing the pots after a meal, picking up as you go along, brushing your teeth before bed, all of those little things. They're just done on autopilot. You don't really need to think about it. It's something you do every day at a certain time. It's something you've done since you can remember. And so when I say people take it for granted, I mean they take it for granted that everybody goes about their day in that way. But it actually isn't the case for everybody. For some people, every single action, every single thing they do has to be really thought out and premeditated. I know for me personally, to get myself to do anything, it's this little internal battle where I have to convince myself each and every day to do something that should be so simple. For example, I have to convince myself every single day to brush my teeth. Before that, I have to remember to brush my teeth. It's not something I do automatically every time I wake up and go to bed. A lot of people will have a sequence of actions that they do at the same time each and every day. And it's as natural as breathing to them. No inner monologue, no convincing, no bribing, no listing of things you've probably forgotten. I like to describe it as some people's minds take the country roads rather than the fastest routes. Anyway, the Roald Dahl books. I desperately want to provide consistency for my children. Consistency is so important for development, to have routine and a predictable schedule. A kind of general idea how the day is going to go each day. And I want to integrate these little moments of one-on-one bonding time with my kids, especially because life's so busy. It's important to touch base each day with the people you love and make time to connect. And yeah, so one of the things we've started doing is I'll read to him before bed and we'll have a good old giggle. As he got older, it kind of transitioned from me reading to him reading to me, and it kind of being more of a chore and a learning thing. And he does still read his school books to me as much as he can, but it's just not the same as cuddling up with your mum and listening to her tell a story, is it? So I've tried to make a point of doing that every night before bed, and it's something he kind of anticipates now, even though we've only been doing it for a couple of weeks now. Before that, we used to snuggle up and watch the Hoof GP together, but I just think this is more interactive. Ike's asleep there, bless him. Anyway, my issue is I find it hard to stick at things. Look at me sitting down and realising it's a bad idea here, almost put Bridgerton on. No. Switch it off and get back to what you're doing. But yeah, often, especially if the day's been stressful, I will spiral and routine will quickly fly out of the window. We used to do a movie night every Thursday when Ike was a baby. It was mine and Rudy's thing. We'd get popcorn and snacks and snuggle up with a blanket. And this is something I intentionally tried to add to our routine because I didn't want him to feel pushed out by his new baby brother. I didn't want him to think that we'd never have moments just Mum and Rudy again. But as I got older and started finding his voice and getting into everything, it became more and more difficult and more stressful to find that quiet hour and a half. And so after a few months, we kind of just stopped having our movie nights. And that has been the case with so many little habits and so many family traditions I've tried to make happen. Even just eating at the table as a family, it never sticks. That's not to say that I don't keep trying and persevering. Giving up is not in my nature. I'm a solutions-based person all the way. And I hate the thought of my children ever thinking I'm flaky or unreliable. And I don't know if unreliable is the right word, because I do think they know that if they ever needed me, I'd be there for them in a heartbeat. But you know what I mean. Anyway, now I'm going to talk through and show you what I meant earlier when I spoke about how one action will trigger another action and help you dot throughout the house like a magical cleaning wizard. So, here, I see a pile of clothes on the floor. That takes me to the wash basket. The wash basket's in the landing where I see a box of wipes. I take the wipes back into my bedroom. I want to empty this box because I don't want a massive bulky box lying around. I figure out how many I can realistically fit into this storage rack because I don't want to clutter up every single shelf with wipes. I need to fit nappies in there too. I managed to fit all but 2 packets of wipes. I take the empty box to this downstairs pile that I've been building up and put the other wipes in the storage rack in the bathroom. Here I find another pile of clothes. And whilst I was picking up the clothes, I saw that there was some Connects in the sink and an empty tub of hand wash. Pick those both up, back to my pile, and the Connects takes me to the boys' room. And now I'm going to pick all of that up. And I know walking you through it step by step seems like I'm stating the obvious, but sometimes I think it's handy to narrate the video a little bit to really get across both visually and conceptually what I'm trying to explain. It just shows how one action influences another action and how easy it can be. And every time you leave a room and enter another room, you're going to see that room looking better and better each time, and that's going to spur you on. Now that I've walked you through a tiny section, I'm hoping that whilst you're watching the rest of the video, you're going to pick up on and recognise the links and the patterns yourself. And maybe you'll be looking around the room at what I'm doing and think, ooh, I know what room that's going to take her to next. Or, ooh, I can see something in the room that I think Remy's going to go to next. Or maybe you'll spot something in the room that you'd have gone for next that maybe I didn't. All of our minds work in different ways, but ultimately the end goal is a nice, calming environment. Now, I need to reiterate that I'm very aware that this ping-pong, Keepy Uppy method won't be for everybody. I know a lot of people will find it long-winded, unnecessary, and just silly. And I know that lots of people will advocate for and swear by, get one room done and move on to the next, or never let it get to a certain point in the first place. That's evident by looking at my comment section. The one that makes me chuckle the most is focus on one room a day. My goodness, if I did that, just made sure one room was clean and tidy a day, the entire rest of the house would be a disaster, within a day. In a short few hours, actually. It's just not sustainable. I need to do a lot more than one room daily. I need to keep on top of the whole house daily. Otherwise, the level of mess will quickly get to an unmanageable point that's going to take literal days to get back on top of. And that isn't fair on me, my partner, or my children. Not only in terms of we don't deserve the house to be that messy, but my kids don't deserve parents who are spending entire days distracted by trying to get the house just to base level tidy. So the idea of just focusing on one section of the house a day isn't realistic for me. And it's not realistic for a lot of people. For a lot of people whose houses get messy fast, for whatever reason, like I said, I'm not going to get into the whys, and I'm not going to get into prevention today either. Because funnily enough, the majority of us know how to prevent a mess. But the know-how and actually putting that knowledge into action are two different things. But yeah, for those of us whose houses get messy quickly, we need whole house solutions that strive to keep the mess to a minimum throughout. And methods we can implement on a daily basis that bring us the least amount of stress and irritation possible. And I've found doing things this way to be the best solution. Doing a whole house clean this way doesn't mean the house is always going to look picture perfect, but it does mean it's going to stay manageable. manageable enough and tidy enough for us not to be anxious about the mess. And I've said this before, but just because some people are naturally messy doesn't mean we don't mind the mess. It doesn't mean it doesn't bother us or we're unfazed by it. Quite the opposite a lot of the time. Now, I want to go back to a point I made earlier. You know the part where I said some of us don't engage in daily habits on autopilot? We struggle to be consistent and stick to routine. Well, something I love about this method is practicing it often teaches us to recognise patterns and links around the home as we go about our day. It helps us to see things we wouldn't usually have noticed in the past. For example, walking past a hairbrush that's been sat in the exact same spot on the side for weeks on end. It might help us to tune in a bit more and eventually stop us from doing things like that. It's essentially training our brains to pick up as we go along. When we do it often enough, neural pathways are going to form, hopefully, and we're hopefully going to start doing this to a lesser extent, even when we're not in quote-unquote cleaning mode. And I actually think that cleaning mode, or switching in and out of modes in general, is a good way to explain it to people who don't have this issue, who just naturally pick up as they go along. Most people don't really have to think about it. Maybe they're walking to the kitchen to get a cup of tea. And yes, I am using Lush shower gel here to get rid of this mark. My kids were happily playing downstairs at this point, and if I went downstairs to get a cleaning product, they would have seen me and wanted me to stay downstairs, so I wouldn't have been able to come back up and finish anything. But yeah, they're on the way to the kitchen to make a cup of tea, and they'll automatically bring something along from another room and put it away. Just simple as that. No bother. Whereas some of us won't even register that thing is there. Not unless we're in cleaning mode and we're actively looking for things to clean. Does that make sense? So this might be the same for you and it might not, but for me, I have to get my mind into cleaning mode to clean. I have to get my mind into reading mode to read, cooking mode to cook, friend mode to remember to be a good friend and answer texts, and so on and so forth. Each tiny moment in my day is compartmentalised and they don't easily overlap. So for example, I find it hard to give attention to my children and parent whilst at the same time trying to maintain the home. Multitasking, essentially. It's really difficult. And this is why you'll often see me do big cleanups at the start or sometimes the end of the day, if I've got the energy. But it's because I really struggle to do both at the same time. It's something I'm working on, and it's something I've absolutely gotten better at as I've moved into my 30s, and it's something that I hope with practice and repetition will continue to get easier. But yeah, the Keepy Uppy Method is helpful for training brains like ours to do the one thing we're always told to do. The thing we're always told is simple and would make life so much easier. Pick up as you go along. But I guess my whole point there was it's not simple for everybody. It makes life easier if you find it easy to do. Something important to add here as well. Sometimes we're not the only person in the house who doesn't notice these little things that could easily be done. Or we're not the only person who has a one-tracked or distractible mind. My entire household is the same, and that adds a whole new layer of difficulty. It causes a lot of issues as a parent who's familiar with childhood development and who wants to do her absolute best to give her children the best chance at succeeding as an adult. So especially when it comes to maintaining a tidy space, in order to teach life skills and tidy habits, you'd ordinarily have to be a tidy person and model those behaviours yourself. How do I expect my children to do these things if I struggle so badly? These are questions I've asked myself a lot. How dare I really hold my children to a standard that I can't always attain myself? And that goes for anything in life. Regulating emotions, being disciplined, being kind. These are all things that need to be modelled for a child in order for them to learn it, and these are all things that I think a lot of the time us adults fall short on. So I can't expect them to consistently keep their things tidy, when they'll often watch me put things down or put things on the side to sort later on. To expect them to do better than me would be shameful and hypocritical. And so that's kind of the entire reason for this channel. To hold myself accountable, to do better, to acknowledge and make people aware that, hey, sometimes these things are just harder for some people than others. But it's no reason to wallow in it, to give up or be defeatist. We can find ways to do it that work for us. This channel's to help myself and others tackle the mess in ways that are maybe a bit outside of the box for some, and to do it in a way that doesn't exacerbate the guilt and shame that so many of us already carry. And a bonus I've found since the conception of this channel is that it's also helping people understand their messy family members a bit more, and encouraging them to take a different angle or approach with them when it comes to the topic, and that's just fantastic. And look, and I'm saying this because I want to give people hope that it's possible to change at whatever age and stage of life you're in, regardless of your past, regardless of your brain's wiring. Because I'm always the first to say some of us are wired differently, and we are just, quote unquote, naturally messy. I know people always like to contest this, and I think it's because they think I'm insinuating that naturally messy means that I think you should just accept the chaos and the mess and just wallow in it. That's not what I'm saying, but it is a fact that some people have more hurdles in front of them, and it takes more effort than you know for them to do something that's as easy as breathing to someone else. It's easy for someone to judge from the outside, but these people have not lived our lives, have not experienced our inner worlds, or the battles we have daily. I was raised in a very clean and tidy household, and I could not be more different to my mum and my stepdad when it comes to the way our homes are run and kept. Growing up, I was given all the tools I needed to keep a tidy space, but I couldn't figure out how to apply those tools. I still grew up messy, despite the nurture aspect of my upbringing, and I still struggle now. But since I started making videos on here, I've personally come on leaps and bounds. And often, when I'm making these videos, I bring you in when my house is at its worst. It doesn't mean it's like this 100% of the time anymore, but I invite you in when it is because I want you to know that you're not alone, that you're not the only one who struggles, and most importantly, that it doesn't have to stay this way for you. When it comes to keeping on top of the house, you can improve, little by little. If you saw the state of my house in my very first whole house clean video on here, you'd be astonished at how much better it is these days. Even at its messiest now, it's nothing like it was. And before I had kids, it was even worse still. And as I was saying, when you have kids who are similar to you, and you want to teach them ways to cope and how to keep on top of things from a young age, it can be difficult. I know firsthand it's not as simple as showing them what to do, or criticising them or being on their case until you mould them to behave in a way you want them to behave. Trust me, no amount of chores and repetition and criticism ever prevented my childhood bedroom from getting into a state over and over again. So I have a very complex relationship with the subject in general. I know it's so much more than black and white, but I know that consistency and repetition is needed to learn a skill, as I was droning on about earlier. But I also know that it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to sink in or help if someone doesn't have the inclination, and especially if that child or adult has ADHD. It's funny because recently, when my eldest turned 8, we gave him a chore chart, where each day he'll do a chore that contributes to the upkeep of the house. Because the last thing I want to do is raise a man who doesn't think he has to pull his weight or do his part. Again, there are so many layers to this. But the upkeep of the house is everybody's responsibility. Anyway, on one of the days, his chore is folding the laundry, every Tuesday. And usually there's a huge amount of laundry that's built up over a few days. And we'll sit there and work together to get it done. And what I found is a task that I would have normally put off because it was going to take a lot of time or I was overwhelmed by it. We never miss now. I never put it off. Because my instinct to set an example and show consistency and habit to my son has started overriding my want to leave it for another time. And we've never been so on top of the laundry. I know the size of the pile on top of the laundry basket says otherwise, but the doom piles of clothes around the house are a lot smaller and less frequent. Anyway, I guess what I'm saying is we never stop being a work in progress. Even after we become parents and the whole world expects us to be perfect suddenly. When it comes to breaking patterns of behaviour or wanting to change, sometimes we just have light bulb moments or rock bottom moments where we just decide one day, I don't want to live like this anymore. I acknowledge that I'm probably never going to find this as easy as some people, but I still want to try. You can never change a person or push or shame a person to change until they're genuinely ready. And I'm going to assume if you're watching this video, you've either just gotten to that point, or you've been in this mindset for a while, but you're still trying to figure out how to turn your hopes for a tidier space into a lifestyle change that works for you and into something that you can keep up with day to day. For me, parenthood was what pushed me to want to make a change. Before that, as much as I hated living the way I lived, I didn't have a strong enough incentive to make a change. Even though I genuinely couldn't see the floor of my house and there was mouldy food and Coca-Cola cans crowding every surface. Even though I couldn't have friends or love interests around at short notice. I had to plan and block out my calendar days in advance before anyone was going to come over. It was horrible not being able to be spontaneous because of how bad my space looked. I wish I could show you what my house looked like before I became a parent. Maybe one day I'll fish out a picture. I always wonder what life would look like for me today if I hadn't become a mum. I honestly have no idea. But I know for a fact this channel wouldn't exist. Anyway, the desire for change. It doesn't have to be parenthood that brings it on. Like I said, it could be a rock bottom moment, a wake-up call, whatever it is. I believe in your ability to achieve whatever it is you put your mind to. What I'm not going to do though is sit here and tell you it's going to happen overnight, or one day you'll just wake up and find it easy, or that the road from where you are to where you want to be is going to be smooth and linear. I think saying those kind of things to someone who's struggled for so long is so insensitive and dismissive. And chances are you might be on track and on form one week, and then struggle again and be back at square one the next. But as long as you hold on to that desire for change and show some grit, your confidence in yourself is going to grow each time you fall down. And you're going to know that, yep, it's happened again, the mess is back, but I know how to pull myself out of it. And you're going to get better and better at that every time. And from one messy person to another, you've got this, and I'm proud of you. Even if no one else is, and even if no one else in your life understands. So I don't know if you noticed, but I came back to this sink probably 3 times to wash up throughout the video. And that's part of how the Keepy Uppy Method works. Because there were so many pots, I couldn't bear the thought of standing there and getting them all done in one sitting. I washed some, went off and got something else done whilst they dried, and then came back and did another batch, and that really helped with the monotony. And as I got this last batch of pots done, I could relax in the knowledge that we were almost finished. And that really took the sting out of how boring it was. But I knew that after this, it was just some finishing touches and then we'd done it. And I really hope that watching this clean today has helped, with whatever it is that you needed when you clicked on this video. Maybe it was to watch someone else get it done so that you knew that you could do it too. Maybe you needed the body double, the company, or just to feel seen. I hope that I've helped. And I'm really grateful that you were here today, because you watching this has really helped me too, so thank you. So in a minute, before I leave you, I'm going to show you the before and afters, but I've just got to give everything a quick wipe down, because clean, shiny surfaces always make things look 1,000 times better, and I really want to bask in my hard work. I know after such a big tidying marathon, you're not always going to feel like cleaning afterwards. But these are just little small things you can do that will change the whole vibe of the room, and with minimal effort. I spoke about how cleaning and tidying are 2 very different things in my last video, and how oftentimes one will get neglected when I'm putting all of my effort into the other. And I guess that's just a consequence of being an all or nothing person. It is what it is. I'm working on it, and that's all you can do, isn't it? I'm forever in the pursuit of balance. Anyway, just like that, we've done it! Please enjoy these before and afters. I'm very chuffed with myself, and long may this last. Again, thank you for being here, and I hope to see you in the next video. Have a fantastic rest of your day.